the data for production. My name is Constantin Tănase. I'm an operation manager with Confidi. I'm working closely with the operation team and our customers and manufacturing partners. My normal job is a bit more technical, and I'm working closely with solving technical questions, DFM challenges, and helping our customers reducing the cost whenever is possible. I'm also dealing with quotations, but my main focus is on technical questions and engineering queries. Right, PCB data. I will be starting this with file naming and how we should name the files that we are sending for manufacturing. We often or sometimes receive files that they have in their naming special characters like in German or maybe in Cyrillic or Finnish alphabet. And sometimes these files may not be recognized by the software that we are using and the factories are using. So whenever you have a special character in your file, that file might actually be missed in when the input stage is done in the factory or when we are trying to view these files. The other thing is how do we name these files? We strongly suggest that we name them with something that has a reference to the actual board and don't use basic or simple naming like Gerber.zip or PCB.zip or data or board.zip. We strongly suggest that the name of the board, it matches the name of the file that you are transferring to us, and it matches the description in the purchase order. So in the right example here on the right hand side, I made a screenshot with how ideally this should look like. So for example, this board is called the Hiking Drone Revision 2.1, and you can see this in the silk screen of the board. The purchase order description also has the same name. It matches the board name, Hiking Drone, and it matches the revision number, which is 2.1. And ideally, we want the data pack to match the same file because we can reference the data to the order and to the actual board. And there's actually a checking process, a check in our process. When we receive an order, we want these three to match. If they don't match, we might give you a call and ask you, did you send the correct Gerber data for this order? Because there is a mismatch in the three of them. So that's one of the reasons why we would like to see the data pack that has the same name with the order and with the actual board, if whenever this is possible. Another thing we suggest is that you place all the documentation for the order for the board in one single zip file or in one file. You may have different files. You may have drawings, specification, notes, screenshots, or anything. But we strongly suggest that you put that in one archive and you send that one file together with the purchase order. We sometimes receive an email with, let's say, you have 20 files for the order, but sometimes those, when they are sent, they are not archived in one file, and we have 20 files in the attachment of one email. And it can be, one of them can be easily missed. It's very easy to miss one of them. So that's why we suggest to keep it tidy and to put all files in one zip file. The required files. What files do we actually need and what files we don't need? We often receive data that have many files that we actually don't use them in the production of the PCB. And I've put a little bit of an example here on this screenshot, and you can see that there are files like assembly, AutoCAD files, schematics, pick and place, and all kind of files that actually are not required for the manufacturing of the PCB. What we actually need is the Gerber data or the ODB++ data, but not the duplicate files, not both of them. So whenever it's possible, send us either the ODB++ data, we can read that, we can use that, either the TGZ data, which is actually the same like ODB, but it's archived format, or the Gerber data. And we also need obviously the drill files. If we need an IPC netlist, if that is available, and that is to compare the layout with the electrical netlist of the data. And if there is a mismatch, then we can consult with you and we can tell you we found a short or an open net in the data that doesn't match the netlist. Is this something wrong? Is this a mistake or is this intentional? Sometimes intentional shorts or opens are acceptable, but we need to double check this information with you. So netlist, it's very important, and if it's available, we do need that. We also need specification, obviously, and drawings if those are available, but not necessarily. And let's say, for example, you have manufactured the same board with a different supplier, and you want to switch to Confidi or to a different supplier for a specific reason. We strongly suggest that you send the working Gerber data that have been used on the other supplier. And when you send this, we strongly recommend that you mark them or you name the file for reference only. So we know, and the factories will also know, to use this data only for reference and not for the actual manufacturing process. And that's because different suppliers have different processes, different tolerances and things like this. So the working Gerber data should be used for reference only if you have made it before with a different supplier. And why we ask for this, you don't have to send it, but why we ask for this is because you may want to make, for example, the same board in the same, let's say, panel, or you may want to use the same stacker. So we would like to match and manufacture for you the same panel that you have manufactured with your previous supplier. And that's one of the reasons. Like we said, ideally we shouldn't receive duplicate sets of data. So only Gerber data is enough or only ODB data is enough. But when you send both files, Gerber's and ODB data, we will lose some time in comparing these two files and see if they are identical and if there are no differences in them. And if there is differences, we might have to call you or we might have to write you an email and asking you which files should we use because we found some differences in the files. Also, sometimes we receive CAD data like .com or .pcb or .brd from board from different various CAD software. We don't use those. We don't have the software to use those. We don't have Altium or Eagle or CAM 350. So we are not able to use those files, and the same, our factories are not able to use this kind of files. So send us Gerber data, and that's the best. Um, uh, we also receive sometimes drawings that include too much details. So drawings, they are very helpful. They tell us the PCB size, maybe the drill plans, drill maps, and all this kind of information, tolerances. But sometimes in the drawings, we often receive screenshots of the files of the PCB layers as well. And let's say you have a board that has 18 layer, and we gonna receive these drawings with at least 18 screenshots of the actual files. We don't need that, and it's basically adding to the volume of the file itself. So it makes it very difficult to manipulate the file and use it. We don't need that. For that, we have the Gerber data, and we suggest not to send them. I know sometimes your software might generate them automatically, but if you have a setting in your software to eliminate this from your data, that's perfect. Specification and language that is used in specification and drawings ideally should be always English. And the reason for that is you may have used German, for example, or French, but when for the prototype, for example, and you want to switch to volume and you may want to use a different factory or a different supplier for your volume. Let's say the boards will be going for the volume manufacturing in Far East. Not everybody there knows English, and even if we translate the specification or the drawings, some misinterpretation may occur, or we might miss something. So whenever it's possible, the specification should be in English. It's easier for everybody, I think. But if that is not possible, different language also not a problem. We just need to translate those and spend some time with that. So depending if the specification is um, too many pages, we might spend a little bit more of time. But that's why English is preferred, because everybody understands it and it's very easy. Another important thing that I consider crucial is to transfer any notes and any comments or discussions that have been made in the quotation stage or the DFM stage. As you know, before you placing an order for a PCB, you may have asked for a stack-up proposal, you may have asked for impedance calculations or different questions that you have asked in the quotation stage or the DFM stage before the order. And we don't know if this should be transferred or not. You may have asked us for a quotation to use a red solder mask, but in the meantime, you have decided to use green solder mask, and this might not be included in the specification. So whenever you have notes and information that have been discussed in the quotation stage, ideally you should transfer those in the order stage as well. And together with the data pack, you should include a document or a few notes in a README file that those changes or those modification or those discussions are applicable or not applicable in the order as well. Delivery format and panels. We receive an email with the order, with the data pack, with the files, and your order might say we need a production for 20 PCBs, but sometimes it's not specified how do you want these PCBs to be delivered to you. Do you want them to be delivered in singles? Do you want them to be delivered in a panel? And if it is a panel, what kind of panel? How many boards we should put on a panel? Should we put 5? Should we put 10? Or maybe 1, depending on the size. So we need this information. We need to know how many boards we need to place on the panel. We need to know the orientation of the boards on the panel, the number of frames, and the position of the frames. You may have, for example, a PCB that has a connector on one edge, and it might not suitable to place a PCB next to the same board. So you may want a gap between the PCB. And we need to know about these gaps and all these settings. You may want to place the board at 5 millimeters away from the next board, or even 10 millimeters. So this is information that we need to know about in advance. Same goes for the frame sizes. Sometimes it's better for the for the production is maybe sometimes better to use only 2 frames or maybe 4 frames. Ideally, the less frames you use, the cheaper the price will be because it's using less space in the production panels. So if your assembly house, it's fine with only 2 frames, like in the example shown here, only 2 frames should be specified in the drawing or in your specification. But if you need 4 frames, we can do that as well. And of course, it needs to be specified, but we need to know about those in advance. Another important aspect is how you would like to hold the boards in the panel. How would the boards would hold in the panel? Should the boards be held by breakout tabs? And if are we using breakout tabs, what kind of breakout tabs? There are many types and many styles. Some breakouts are simply solid, and some of them are with perforations. And we need to know a little bit about those details as well. We don't want to make a solid tab that will be impossible for you to separate the boards from the panel. So we need to know what kind of size you need for it and what kind of type of breakouts. Um, yeah, we also need to know the location of these tabs if they are used and the scoring is not used. We need to know because you may have a connector on the edge and the factory might not spot that correct connector, and they might place a breakout tab under that connector that might not be suitable for you, and you might want to move it somewhere. But if we are sending the working error data for approval for you, and you're gonna see the breakout is under a connector, that's not problem, but it's some we are wasting time with questions like this. So ideally, it's better for us to know in advance when you're placing the order, the position of the tabs. Also, you may have in your board, you may have overhanging connectors. Those are the kind of connectors that are hanging below the PCB board. So sometimes it's required, sometimes these connectors are installed at the assembly process and not so before the separation of the boards from the panel. So whenever this is the case, you may want to add an internal routing in the PCB frame to accommodate this overhanging connector and to leave space for him to fall into the space. Another important factor in the panelization in the panel is the fiducials and the tooling holes. Fiducials are required by the assembly companies to locate and to see where the boards are and to calculate the step and repeat. And sometimes tooling holes are also required. Most of the time, tooling holes are required by the factories as well. They are using these tooling holes for their processes to fix the boards on the bed, on the machine bed. Sometimes they are not used, but it's better for us to know from the beginning if you need them, how many of them you need, where do you need them, and the size for them. Most of the fiducials are about 1 millimeter in size and rounded, and sometimes they are 1.5 millimeters. But sometimes, and some companies and customers, they require a special kind of fiducials. So, for example, a square fiducial with a ring around the fiducials. Um, so we need to know about these things, how to create them, where to place them, at what distance from the frame or the PCB edge. You might have scoring in your board or some routing, and you don't want to place a fiducial in the path of the scoring. So you need to consider these things as well. Another detail that we would like to know about is the X-outs on the panel. The X-outs are basically bad boards in a delivery panel. So let's say you have a 5-up panel, meaning that you have 5 PCBs in your delivery panel. So you will be delivered with a panel containing 5 boards. It happens sometimes that during the production in the factory, one of these boards may have a defect. Sometimes something is just going to go wrong with only one board. Out of those 5, one of those boards is going to be a bad board, a scrapped board. So this is what X outs are, basically bad boards on the panel. While most of the customer they are accepting X outs or bad boards on the panel, some assembly houses or some customer may not accept them, and it's a good idea for you to tell us if you are accepting X outs or you are not accepting, and if you are accepting, how many X outs, how many bad boards on the panel do you accept? Sometimes only 10% is acceptable, sometimes is not, or sometimes even more is acceptable. It's different from customer to customer, and it's important for us to know these details. I think that's about it about the panel. Yes, it's pretty easy actually to create a small panel drawing or suggestion. You may not have the right tools, but even if you are using, for example, an Excel document, you can take a screenshot of the board, put it in the Excel document, and then you can add some frames and some notes. And there it is. That is your panel drawing with all the details needed. It doesn't require special programs or anything like that. It's simple as it gets. Other requirements, typically these are requirements that are sent with a PO, so in the same email or even discussed prior the PO during the quotation stage. And these are product classification and industry, one of them. And it's important for us to know what kind of industry this your product is going to be used for. That's important because we need to be compliant with the regulations. For example, if your board is used for defense, different requirements are applicable and regulations. So we need to know what kind of industry you're using this your PCB. And if there are any restrictions, you may have restrictions for the country of production of the PCB. So you may not be able to manufacture this board in a country like China, or it might be okay for Asia, but not China. So Korea might be used, or a different Taiwan, for example, or it might be required to stay in Europe or in a European Union country. So it's an important detail, and we need to know about this kind of stuff. Also, for every PCB, quality reports are generated, and it's a good idea that we know in advance about these quality reports and what kind of quality reports you require for your product and for your boards. Is it just a simple COC, which is a certificate of compliance? Do you need a full fair? Do you need a PPAP? For example, PPAP are coming in different levels and they are used for the automotive industry mostly, but as well for possible for defense as well or space or even railway. But we need to know this in advance, and sometimes some of these quality reports are free of charge, but sometimes uh, they might require additional cost depending on the report. Specific packaging instructions. It's another important detail in the order process. And we need to know if you have any specific requirements for packaging. Shipping instructions, it's also very important. This might already have been clarified in the quotation stage if your shipping should be done by air, by sea, or by road, depending where the ports are being manufactured. But for example, if you have a volume order that doesn't require to be manufactured in a week or two or something like that, then it's okay to be manufactured in the 6 months. Maybe a sea shipment, it's a better idea because you can transport a large volume of PCBs overseas for cheaper price. So shipping instructions are also a good idea to be clarified in the order stage if they haven't been clarified in the quotation stage. After productions and new revisions for repeat orders or new orders with new revisions, also important. You might want to place a new order for a new revision, and you may want to change something, for example, in the panel, or you may want to change the solder mask color or any details in the board. It's good for them to know about, and it's also very important to know when you're placing your new order. It's important to know that you have manufactured uh, the same a previous revision of the same board um, with us. So we can inform the factory and we can use the same stack up, and some maybe you want to use the same panel setup and things like that. So we would like to know if you want to change something in the panel. And I've put here ECNs and MODs. That means engineering change notes and modes. So for example, you have manufactured an order and you want to place a repeat order, but something was wrong with one of the breakout tabs. It is a good idea that you tell about these issues so we can take care of them on the next production, on the next repeat order. And if you have such thing, it's maybe a better idea to create a document where you can put a notes about the change you want to make, and to be supported with some screenshots. For example, you can say, can you remove or can you move this breakout from this position 1 millimeter to the left? And you tell us with an arrow where do you want to move it and which breakout. That's, I think, pretty much it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you being here. And let's